very much. And it's been great to hear all the other speeches today. And it's great to hear from Roger Mackenzie from Unison. And I want to give my solidarity to striking Tower Hamlet workers. In fact, we had a striking Tower Hamlets worker at the Socialist Campaign Group of Labour MPs this week. Looking at the situation now, the UK has 65,000 excess deaths, making it one of the worst in the world. Tens of thousands of those deaths were completely avoidable, according to the top scientists. The results of government failure after government failure on testing and tracing, on PPE, on care homes and on lockdown. And those failings flow from us, as well as Brazil and the United States of America, having one of the most free market neoliberal systems in the world, leaving our society and our public services unprepared. We need to replace that system, not just tinker with that system, and that is a fundamental task of socialists. The public health crisis is set to develop into one of the deepest ever recessions. Experts are warning that UK unemployment rates could hit 15% if there is a second wave. That would mean approaching 5 million workers unemployed. And then, of course, there is underemployment as well. We can't fight the economic crisis until we tackle the public health crisis. So we need to keep up the calls for public health to be put first. So solidarity with our teaching unions. But we also need a national plan for growth and jobs, as we've heard. The record levels of state spending shouldn't be about shoring up a broken economic model that's failed people for the last decade and more. It should be about transforming our economy, dealing with the numerous crises we face, the crisis in wages, the crisis in public services, the climate crisis. We should be about creating a state that serves the people rather than a state that serves capital. The Tories don't want permanent state interventions and public ownership, but that's what we need to fight for. But state intervention in the interests of the 99% and public ownership of a modern democratic manner. We need to be fighting for a Green New Deal because we can't go into the climate crisis as badly prepared as we were for this crisis. We need to fight for state investment in modern infrastructure, in high-wage tech and industrial industries to move our economy from low skill and low wage to high skill and high wage. We need to be fighting for investment to create hundreds of thousands of jobs in the public services, for a record level of council housing, for a national care service, and of course we need proper sick pay, rent cancellations, and much more in the immediate term. We need to be about building a society of equals because the pandemic has shone a spotlight on the deep structural inequalities that scar our society. The Black Lives Matter movement has rightly pushed structural racism to the top of the agenda. Now's the time for real structural systematic change. The dismantling of all systematic inequality must be at the heart of how we rebuild better. We must stand shoulder to shoulder with women, with disabled people, with BAME communities and LGBT plus people who, as the economic recession bites, will face ever more reactionary attempts at scapegoating and attempts to divide and rule in our communities. The crisis has exposed inequalities, not only within society, but between societies. Poorer nations are facing even greater debts, which will mean cutting health services. Any global recession, make no mistake, will also see tensions rise. Already, Trump is more belligerent. Attacks on the World Health Organization are signs of a more unilateral and a beggar thy neighbor policy. Likewise, with the increasing rhetoric against China. When we say people before profit, we must also mean peace and justice before profit. And over the coming months, that will mean ever greater solidarity with Palestine against the attempt to annex the West Bank. So in conclusion, comrades, as this crisis deepens, those radical ideas and policies in our last manifesto will be even more important and even more relevant. In fact, we will need to be even more radical. Some will deepen their attacks saying that's why we lost. But it wasn't why we lost. We lost because it became a Brexit election. There is only one way of responding to the health and economic and climate crisis, and that way, my friends, is called socialism.